Hey everyone, I'm Chris Runge with Runge Cars, and this is my workshop. Today I'm going to show you guys the tools that we use to build our cars from the ground up. Here we are in the Runge Cars workshop where we hand build our cars in traditional European coachwork fashion. One of the questions we get asked often is, what tools do we use to make these cars? And today we're going to show you guys exactly how we do that. So our cars start with a chassis, and to build the chassis we use this surface plate. A surface plate is a chunk of iron that is perfectly level on top. And this one specifically weighs 16,000 pounds and is 24 feet long. By using this, we can lay out our chassis, jig all of the pieces together, and then weld them up with a really high level of precision. So by fixturing the chromoly tubing, we're able to precisely weld and build out our chassis right here. The surface plate has these tracks built into it, and those allow us to lock in different fixturing to set up precise angles and positions for the chassis to be built up and off of. And the reason why we use such a robust piece of metal is because it allows us to get dead-on precise fitment and fixturing for our chassis. That precision translates into the driving experience, the fit and the finish of the car, and just makes everything that much easier to do later on in the build process. Because this surface plate is so big, we were able to build out other workstations on it. We have a welding station back in the corner, we have our sheet metal brake over here, and then up here we have a staking table where we're able to kind of use the surface plate as an anvil in a way. So this is a finger brake, and the beauty of a finger brake is that you can take out sections of the brake here for doing multiple bends in your pieces. So this is a planishing hammer. We have it set up for linear stretching. The process of linear stretching is basically thinning out a material to open it up, which will ultimately result in a radius being put in the workpiece when you're linear stretching on a surface that is 90 degrees adjacent to a panel like this, having a fold in it. So in our workshop, we not only build bespoke automobiles, but we also do furniture and some other prototyping in automotive design work. The body bucks act as a guide for the body work that we hammer out and create back here in the workshop. This is one of the RS models that we're building, and it's just about ready for body work. So that'll be the next thing that we do is start making our templates and hammering out the aluminum bodywork that fits on this. So this is a tool that I designed that allows us to make multiple radiuses of bends that are used in our aluminum tube bucks and in our furniture. Within the 17 different radiuses on this tool, we can adjust for just about any radius you can imagine. And it works very simply. You insert your aluminum tube, give it a bend, and there you go. Once we have our design laid out, we can take these aluminum tubes and put them on the car and basically establish the overall aesthetic, the skeleton of the design in aluminum tube. This whole tube structure is summed up in one word that we call superlight. It's a superlight tube form that we then shape our body panels to, and it ultimately becomes the skin that you see on the car. All right, so this is a Pexto staking table. It's probably 80 to 100 years old. And I acquired this out of an aircraft hangar where they were restoring vintage warbirds. The thing I love about this tool is that it's very versatile. Once I got it, I set up this table for it to fit right on the surface plate here. And it's pretty neat. You can just take out the different types of anvils that you're using and change them over for whatever you're needing to shape, hammer on. You can accomplish a number of different tasks right on this one workstation. So depending on what we're working on, we'll use this tool for anything from planishing, straightening out small panels, to making straps up on these rounded types of tooling. You know, we'll heat up aluminum, anneal it, wrap straps around there for clamping purposes. I mean, as creative as you can get, you can just about make anything you want on this setup. So this is an English wheel, and this specific wheel was made by F.J. Edwards. Now, a lot of people look at this and wonder how old this tool is. The earliest F.J. Edwards wheels that I'm aware of are pre-war, from maybe the late 1920s into the 1930s. However, this one, from all the documentation that I received with it, was actually made in 1979, so it's not that old. And from what we understand, this could very well be the last F.J. Edwards E-type English wheel ever made. Now, what the English wheel does is shapes metal, or puts a compound curve in metal, by using pressure between an upper wheel or anvil and a lower wheel or anvil. And by tightening these wheels, or pushing them together and squeezing the metal between them, rolling it back and forth, it creates a compound curve by thinning or blistering that material out. And as you wheel it back and forth, you can control the amount of curve that you achieve in your panel. The lower anvil can be changed out for multiple radiuses depending on what type of a curve you want to achieve. It's really one of the most basic tools we have in the shop, and one of the most effective, and it takes years to truly master this tool. So this tool started life as a shear, where it was used for cutting metal, but it's been repurposed to operate as a reciprocating hammer. And what that means is that basically we can change out these dies, and it almost acts like a sewing machine, just a light tapping up and down, and depending on what dies we have installed in the machine, we can achieve different shapes in the metal. The primary purpose that I use it for is for shrinking the material. So whereas the English wheel would be stretching and expanding the material, this is shrinking it, or gathering the material together to achieve a compound curve. And by having both of these tools in the shop, it allows us to be more efficient and really versatile in the shapes that we can achieve when we're making our bodies for the cars. For my first 3 cars that I built, I did not have a tool like this. So all of my shrinking was done over a tree stump, where I was hammering the metal, or the material, into a dished shape on the tree stump, and basically achieving the same thing that this machine achieves, but in a much, much longer and more strenuous process. Once I got this machine, it allowed me to speed up that process by 20, 30 times faster than hammering by hand, because this, every stroke of the hammer is almost the equivalent of 1 hammer blow by hand. So when this machine came to me, it had been restored, and the conversion to the 3/4 inch shaft and tooling had been done, but still needed some fine tuning. So I went through and got this all dialed in, and then I found that by using Delrin dies specifically for shaping the aluminum, we were able to achieve a much higher quality finish on our metal versus the steel dies that a lot of people use in this type of tool. So we do a lot of welding in our shop, and primarily we are TIG welding on a regular basis. I love Miller welders. They're a great company with great product. And I purchased my first Miller welder in 2014, and that would be this one. It is the Diversion 180. It's kind of your entry-level TIG welder. Great to learn on, easy to use. From there, I jumped to the Dynasty 210 DX. And this is a commercial grade TIG welder. It's water cooled, and it does an incredible job, especially for the long runs that we need to do on the cars when you would normally get a really hot torch, hot hand. this thing stays nice and cool. It's very precise and allows us to weld together our bodywork without a lot of finishing work. From there, we've jumped to having this Multimatic, and the Miller Multimatic is a 2-in-1 welder, so you can do both MIG and TIG welding in one small unit with a very small footprint. We just find that this welder is super handy to have around the shop. It can do most of what that does. It's not quite as complex as the Dynasty, but it can tackle big jobs, small jobs, and the thing I love about this with the MIG setup is that if we need to just tack up materials real quick for prototyping or fixturing purposes, you can grab the MIG welder, tack them up real quick, and then you can finish out the product with a nice TIG weld, all in the same unit. So those are the 3 welders that we have around the shop and that we're always using on a regular basis. The process that we take is tacking the panels together, doing a solid weld all the way down the top, bringing it back through on the bottom, and then we knock that weld down just so there's no high spots. After the weld is knocked down, we typically will take the panel and we'll run it through the English wheel for planishing and for smoothing. Once it's smooth in the English wheel, we can come back and finish by hand, possibly with a little more filing, but usually we're moving on to sanding and then polishing at that point, and then that panel will be ready for the final polish. So in finishing the bodywork, I use a few different tools. One of them is the English wheel that we've covered before, but I also use finishing and body hammers like this. This is a brand new set of hammers that have not been surfaced yet, and with all of the tools that I use that come in contact with my aluminum, I like them to be as smooth and as polished as possible because it makes my finishing process a lot more efficient. So these will get sanded and polished to a mirror-like finish on the surface here, along with the dollies like this. These are straight from the factory, they haven't been cut yet, and it's time to give them a good polish. So this is my polisher. It's a 3-phase unit. As you can see, it's very old and very heavy duty, and it still functions like a Swiss clock. So I'm going to use a little bit of rouge, and just with this polishing wheel, I'm going to run the face of the hammer on it until it's a mirrored finish. So I hit the polisher with a little bit of rouge. This is a tube buck that my son actually built from scratch without the use of any plywood or cardboard templates. He shaped everything by eye. The design pulls styling cues from the Porsche 718 RSK RS60 series in the nose, and then it has a little bit of the Carrera Abarth GTL in the rear. It's going to be an absolute stunner when it's done. So another really useful tool that we have in the shop is actually this chalkboard. And what we use the chalkboard for is the design and layout of side profiles of bodywork. And so right now, you can see that there's a chassis drawn on the chalkboard, and that's actually this chassis drawn in full scale. And once we have the chassis drawn out, it allows us to position a full-scale driver, like you see here in the wood form, and then design bodywork around both the driver and the chassis. And this is a truly bespoke, traditional form of coach building. The body lines are laid out using pinstriping tape. It's about a 1/4 inch masking tape that you can stick on and peel off and stick on and peel off until you get that body to flow exactly where you would want it. Once we've established this profile of the bodywork, we can actually take the aluminum tubes and we can bend the tubing to match these high points in the profile and use them on the body buck, on the chassis in real time, in full scale. And it's a very efficient and effective way of transferring design work from the chalkboard to a full-scale chassis in real time. One of the most important tools that we use on a daily basis is the electric hand shear, and this one I found to be far superior after trying and using for years other units on the market. The reason I love this one is the ergonomics, the shape of it, and how you hold it in your hand. Anyone who's used the shears like this a lot, you know that your hands can get fatigued, your wrists can get sore. I find that this does not have that effect. And this specific one is made by Fine. It's a German brand. Some of you may know they're one of the earliest pioneers in developing the electric drill that so many companies use today. The other thing I love about this shear is that it comes with an extra set of cutting tools for the head that allow you to make really tight radiuses, which is a problem I've found with the other shears, especially in that they will mar up your material or scar it at the corners of the head here. And this lets you make those nice turns without really damaging your material. So super important tool, something you use every day in a shop like this, and this is the best one I've found. So as we've developed this form of bending the tubes and applying that to the super light structure that creates the car body, we envisioned applying that to furniture. And in doing so, it's gone back and forth. We've actually tied in elements of our car interiors with the furniture that we build, and vice versa. As we develop and design the furniture, we're pouring it back into the interior design of the cars. And it's been a really fun challenge to do this. We have one of the chairs here that's in mid-progress being built specifically for a customer. And then here we have our original, very first prototype chair that I made in March of 2020. So each chair, just the chair alone, has 104 welds just in the framework. And this is prior to us fixing the seat back and seat bottom. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into each piece, hand bending every tube so that it's symmetrical side to side, and fixturing this whole thing, and then welding it all up and finishing it. The final product is something that is a great conversation piece. It's super comfortable, and something that I've had art collectors, car collectors, furniture collectors really jump at to have the chance of owning. And it gives my customers a really unique opportunity to own another piece of handmade craftsmanship that's not only in their automobile, but can be enjoyed in their home. So that covers some of the tools that we use here in the shop to build both our cars and our furniture. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, please like it as well.